What if I told you that one of the most famous serial killer confessions in American history might never have happened? What if the evidence doesn't match the story? What if the timeline is impossible? And what if a pet dog holds the key to unraveling one of the biggest mysteries in true crime? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about this case. July 26, 1991, Milwaukee County Jail. Jeffrey Dahmer sits across from Bath police detectives. The world expects a monster to confess. Instead, they get something far more disturbing: uncertainty. Let me paint you a picture of what actually happened in that interrogation room. Detective Dennis Murphy slides photographs across the table. Pictures of Steven Hicks, a young man who disappeared 13 years earlier. Dahmer stares at them. And here's where it gets strange. According to the official Bath Police Department homicide investigation report, Dahmer's identification was tentative. He appeared uncertain. Only after multiple attempts did he seem more certain. Think about that for a second. This is supposedly the man he spent hours with, the man he killed, the man he dismembered, the man whose remains he scattered across his property. But it gets worse, much worse. Dahmer claims he scattered bones south and west of the house, approximately 75 feet away, by throwing them down a rocky abutment to a cliff. He even draws a map, signs it, dates it July 26, 1991. But here's the thing that should make your blood run cold. There's no mention anywhere in this report of a videotaped confession. No audio recording. Nothing. In Wisconsin, detectives Murphy and Kennedy testified that 60 hours of Dahmer's alleged confessions were never recorded. 60 hours. Gone. No verification. No proof. Which means we have zero verifiable evidence that Jeffrey Dahmer actually confessed to anything, or that he wasn't under duress during these so-called critical interrogations. Let that sink in. Now let's talk about the physical evidence, because this is where the entire story falls apart. The Bath Township Police investigation report includes photographs, lots of them, the Dahmer residence, a bridge over a river, interior shots, a crawl space. But here's the problem. None of these images have clear captions. Their connection to the alleged crime is implied, not proven. And then there are the alleged murder weapons. Two saws appear in the photographic evidence: a bow saw and a handsaw. These are the tools that allegedly dismembered human remains. Take a close look at these images. They're pristine, hardly used, almost brand new. No signs of wear, no blood, no organic material, nothing. Compare them to an old, worn mallet, also pictured in the evidence. The contrast is jarring. It's like someone went to a hardware store years later and said, "We need some saws for this case file." And here's the kicker. These pristine saws and mallet don't even appear in the evidence log. But wait, there's more. The house at 4480 West Bath Road? The Dahmer family moved out. Public records show that the property sold in 1982. It sold again in 1985. Any items or photographs taken from that property after 1985 may not even belong to the Dahmer family at all. So whose saws are we looking at, and why are they in this case file? Let's talk about the timeline, because this is where everything completely unravels. The evidence bag containing bone fragments is labeled August 1st, 1991. That's 13 years after the alleged murder. 13 years. How were these fragments identified as belonging to Steven Hicks? There's no mention of DNA testing anywhere in the reports. Not in the Bath police files, not in the FBI records titled FBI Records The Vault, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer. Nothing. The bag contains what the Smithsonian Institution identified as an unidentified long bone, measuring just 3 centimeters. Unidentified. And the chain of custody? For materials found over a decade later? Highly questionable at best. But here's the detail that exposes everything. Jeffrey Dahmer had a dog. His name was Frisky, 10 years old at the time of the alleged murder. On Dahmer's own hand-drawn property diagram from July 26, 1991, he clearly marks Frisky's kennel in the top left corner. Yet nowhere, and I mean nowhere, in the official investigation reports is this dog mentioned. Think about what this means. A dog would immediately detect the scent of human remains. Decomposing flesh has one of the strongest, most distinctive odors in nature. Dogs can smell it from incredible distances. Frisky would have exhibited behavioral changes, digging, whining, obsessively returning to the disposal site. And when Dahmer left for Ohio State University in September 1978, Frisky would have been left alone on that property, with any remains. The complete absence of any mention of this dog's behavior suggests investigators never seriously considered whether the alleged murder actually occurred as described. But the biggest problem with the Jeffrey Dahmer confession? His father. In his book, A Father's Story, Lionel Dahmer reveals a critical detail that shatters the official timeline. After Joyce Dahmer left the family home in August 1978, Lionel's frequent phone calls to his sons suddenly went unanswered. Concerned, Lionel discovered Joyce had left the house. Here's what Lionel writes, and I quote, "Not wanting Jeff to remain alone, I moved back into the house right away. Sherry came with me." Lionel specifically references the remaining weeks while Jeff continued to live in the house. Within 2 weeks of a drinking episode, Sherry discovered Jeff's friend had stolen her jewelry. All of this happened before they drove Jeff to Ohio State University that September. So when exactly did Jeffrey Dahmer have time to commit this murder? When did he have time to dismember a body? To dispose of remains? To scatter bones across the property? According to his own father's documented timeline, Jeff was never alone long enough to do any of it. And here's what should concern everyone. The official investigation report fails to mention Lionel or Sherry Dahmer as potential witnesses. They were living in the house during the critical period. They were there. Why not? Let's step back and look at what we actually know. We have a confession with no recording, no verification, no proof it ever happened the way investigators claim. We have pristine murder weapons that show no signs of use and don't appear in the evidence log. We have bone fragments labeled as unidentified found 13 years later, with no DNA testing and a questionable chain of custody. We have a pet dog whose behavior was never documented, even though any animal would have reacted to decomposing remains. We have conflicting descriptions of the victim from his own parents. We have a timeline that makes the alleged murder impossible based on the father's own written account. And we have investigators who never interviewed the people actually living in the house during the critical time period. This isn't just about one case. This isn't just about Jeffrey Dahmer or Steven Hicks. This is about how we accept narratives without questioning evidence, how we let emotions override logic, how we allow justice to be corrupted by the desire for closure. The Steven Hicks case has been accepted as fact for over 3 decades. Jeffrey Dahmer's confession has never been seriously challenged. The evidence has never been properly scrutinized. Until now. So, what really happened to Steven Hicks? Was Jeffrey Dahmer really his killer? Or was this confession manufactured to close an open case and create a neat narrative about America's most infamous serial killer? The evidence we've examined today raises more questions than it answers. And that's exactly the problem. In a justice system that prides itself on beyond a reasonable doubt, the Steven Hicks case is filled with nothing but doubt. Unrecorded confessions, pristine evidence, impossible timelines, missing witnesses. This case demands a reopening. It demands real scrutiny. It demands answers. Because if we can't trust the evidence in the most famous serial killer case in American history, what can we trust? If this investigation opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with anyone who believes in questioning official narratives. And drop a comment below. Do you think the Steven Hicks case should be reopened? This is just part 4 of our deep dive into this case. Check out parts 1, 2, and 3 linked in the description to see the full picture of how this investigation went wrong from the very beginning. The truth is out there. We just have to be willing to look for it.